Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Hogarth's Global Astrology. Know your planets, know yourself, or in this case, know your planet, know your nation, know yourself in this regards. Now, as by popular request, a lot of you are asking me to examine specific countries and what's going on. And as you would have seen in my most recent survey, I asked if people wanted to see videos either on Russia or Canada or, China or India. And by 48%, maybe it's changed a little bit, but basically almost half of you said you wanted a more in-depth kind of look at what's going on with India. And one can completely understand why that would be the case. Now, what I've done is I've looked into India and its chart, and India is in such a situation at the moment, and I'll explain why, that I thought it best to actually do a three-part mini-series on India. I'm going to do a three-part series on India because it's that extensive. This video, we're actually just going to focus on the energies at play in India. So we're going to look at India's birth as a nation and what's fundamentally going on. In the next video, so video number 2, I'm going to look at India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, because every leader of a nation is connected to the fate of that nation in some way. And looking at his chart, which I've got here already, so this is the chart of India, which I'll explain. This is Narendra Modi's chart without the drishti drawn in, because I'm just looking at it for comparison. So we'll look at his chart, what's going on. And then in the third video, I'm going to explore how the situation may either escalate or de-escalate in India based on its Mahadasha system and its natal planets and the transiting planets. Right. So this video, as you know, I often like to sprinkle, a bit of humor into my videos. But of course, this time, this is just a very serious video, really, isn't it? If we think of what's going on with India right now. So just to put it into perspective, India's population is approximately 1.4 billion. I think it's actually 1.39 to be precise. But let's just go with 1.4 billion. And what is a billion? It's 1,000 million. Yeah, there we are. It's 1,000 million. So India is the second most populous nation on Earth, with China being the most. I think around about 1.5 billion. And it also is a continent in of itself. India, it's a huge place. It's absolutely massive. And to put it into perspective, now the operation of the United States is approximately, I think it's between 340 to 350 million. But let's round it up, yeah? Because of course, there will be many people that are not declared in America, yeah, for obvious reasons. So let's just go with 350 million. So that 0.4 of the billion in India's chart is basically almost 400 million, which means that 0.4 is approximately 50 million more people than live in the entire United States. Yeah, so we really get a perspective. This is gargantuan, huge numbers here. India is extremely populous, and of course, and that can cause problems. So one thing I'd like to quickly do is give a little shout out to Ellie Dreams Down Under, because I saw your tarot video on India, and it was really good. Yeah, I think it was just really interesting. But here, as you know, this is Hogarth's Global Astrology, so I'm going to look at India from the global perspective. So first of all, let's start with the birth of India. Now, some people will say it is the 26th of January 1950, when India became a republic. Yeah, that's when it became a republic. But I argue differently, because we need to look at when a nation is born. And the birth of India was when it officially became separated from Britain, because of course India used to be a colony of Britain. Yeah, because remember as well, you know, as they said once upon a time about the British Empire, it was said that the British Empire was a nation upon which the sun never set. And what they meant by that is that the British Empire was so wide and so extensive that when it was setting on one area, when the sun was setting on one area of its territories, it was rising on the other. So there literally was a period of time where the sun did not set on a British territory. Now, all of this stuff, you know, I cover this in my book, you know, which I've been telling you about, and I still not had time to edit, but it is an exploration of the British character via our nation's birth chart of the 1st of January 1801. And that's when we combined and became the United Kingdom. So that's a legitimate birth date. So likewise, for India, the time that I've chosen for India is it is the 15th of August 1947, which is also known as India's Independence Day, apparently, but correct me if I'm wrong. And the time that I've chosen, now remember as well that the accurate time gives the ascendant, and the ascendant shows you the rulerships and which planets rule what. Yeah, and this is really important. Now, in the UK, as far as I'm aware, Acts of Parliament tend to come into force at midnight. Yeah, at the stroke of midnight, at the prerequisite date. So to calculate the ascendant of India, I didn't look directly at India's birth time, yeah, because it was connected to the United Kingdom. Yeah, it was connected to the United Kingdom. So the act of the India Partition Act, when India, you know, formally left the UK and actually became independent, most likely happened at the stroke of midnight on the 15th of August. If we take midnight time, UK, and then add that on to the time of India and its capital, which is Delhi, and I because the capital of India has actually changed quite a few times, so I had to look to see, and I think it changed to Delhi in around about in the mid-30s. Yeah, this is when Britain was still when it was still under Britain's empire, and the capital was changed to Delhi, which is now I think called New Delhi. And unless it's changed again, correct me if I'm wrong, because it does change quite a lot. But at that time, the capital would have been Delhi. Now, India is 4.5 hours ahead of the UK. So to that 12 midnight our time, that meant 4:30 a.m. India time. And I cast the chart for that time, and for me it was remarkable. Instantly I was like, this is it. So if we look here, now we need to look at that first house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets in India's first house. Now, what is the first house? Let's just remind ourselves. This is so important, and it makes so much sense. Because the first house is what? The top of the head, the physical body, the constitution, health, personality, innate inspirations, first impressions, appearance, character, and birth into the world, and is a Kendra and a trine. Yeah, so an angular house and a trinal house. Wow. And as many of you who watch my channel, you would have heard me say that any planet or planets that are in the first house have a tremendous impact. So India has got 6 planets in its first house in the sign of Cancer, yeah? So India is actually a Cancerian nation. Now, some people say otherwise. Some people say it's Libra or Capricorn or what have you. For me, Cancer makes absolute sense because it's lunar. India is very lunar. Even if you think of the culture, what is the moon? The moon is about food, is about family. It's about the masses. Yeah, the moon governs all kinds of circadian rhythms or what have you, things to do with the masses. Even in nature, the mass gathering, the gathering of flocks of birds or fertility cycles, etc., are governed by the moon. And the moon, of course, represents the people. So it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, that one of the second most populous nations on Earth should be a Cancer ascendant, especially when there's so many planets in the first house, in the body of the nation. Yeah? Just in case you're wondering, by the way, this is Fever Tree soda water, Italian blood orange. Oh, it's gorgeous. As you know, I need to have a little beverage on the go whenever I'm doing these, because one, you just get thirsty, your mouth gets dry. So if we look at that now, this is very, very significant because the ascendant decides the lordship of the houses, which planets rule what. And there is something very important to know about all Cancer ascendants, and including all Cancer ascendant countries or companies or whatever. With the Cancer ascendant, I'm going to show you the lordship. So it means the moon becomes the lord, the chart ruler, or the first house, yeah? And in India's case, the chart ruler is in the first house. That's very significant. It means all Cancer ascendants, they have the sun, Leo, rules the second house of family, values, and finance, yeah? This is why Cancerians are so into family. It's not just because of the moon, it's because the sun rules the second house of family. Then when we go out here, we have the 12th house and the third house, which are ruled by Mercury. So Cancerians tend to be very good or very adept at communications. Now, isn't it interesting that there are many, call centers in India? Yeah? 12th house, overseas. Third house deals with communications of all kinds. So we will look at also as well at those planets in the 12th house and the third house. For all Cancer ascendants, Venus rules the 4th house and the 11th house. This is also part of why Cancer ascendants are known as good homemakers. It's because the planet of Venus, beautification and comforts and luxuries, rules over the 4th house. And here we can see Jupiter is in here. So that makes that Jupiter quite strong. But there is a bit of compromise there when it's in Libra, and I'll explain. The 11th house also deals with great gains. Yeah, it deals with money, large sums of money, and networks and all sorts of stuff like that, distribution systems, etc. It's also a house of desire. So this is where as well Cancerians can have that desire for the good life, luxury, wealth, goods, food. Cancer, the sign of Cancer is about food, but in terms of the desires that many Cancerians have for luxury, yeah, and the good life, yeah, it's because of Venus. And then when we look here, Mars, it becomes the Yoga Karaka, yeah, the Yoga Karaka for the Cancer ascendant and also for Leo. Why? Because Mars rules a trinal house, which is Dharma, and an angular house, which is the 10th house. For Leo ascendants, it's the 4th house and the 9th. Yeah, that get ruled because it just moves forward slightly. Anyway, so we'll have to look at Mars and the condition of Mars, yeah, because you want your Yoga Karaka to be strong. Yeah, remember that. You want the Yoga Karaka to be strong because that planet is going to have a disproportionate effect on a nation, yeah, or a person. Jupiter rules the 6th house of health and the 9th house of philosophy for Cancer ascendants. This is part of ways and why they're so spiritual as well, and why they're often involved in healthcare. nursing, you know, and things like teaching, and also the police as well, defending the homeland, or army, stuff like that. And then we stumble into why India is having such problems at the moment, because for all Cancer ascendants, balloon popper, yes, Saturn rules the 7th house of relationships and open enemies, and rules the 8th house of death and transformation, or death, sex, and rock and roll, as I say. And what it means is, it means more so than usual that Saturn is a very karmic planet. Saturn is the planet of karma anyway, but it's very karmic for Cancer ascendants. Yeah, it has a big impact, impact. And also as well, Saturn, or Shani as he's referred to in India, is also one of the biggest enemies of the moon. Let me tell you, when these two planets fight, whenever they're in each other's signs, there are problems. Yeah, I guarantee you there are problems, because they don't really get along and they don't really agree. The moon is wistful, longing, romantic. The moon it doesn't like discipline. The moon is soft, sensitive, very, very sensitive. The moon is yin energy, the pure feminine. The moon is prone to mood swings, changeability. The moon is fickle, yeah? This is why Cancerians are often known as what? Moody, yeah? You know, we're not all moody. You know, I'm a Cancerian, but you know, the mood does fluctuate because it's there with the moon. What does the moon do? It waxes and it wanes. And when we look here, we see India has got the moon in the 1st house in the body. So the chart ruler is actually in the 1st house, which really makes India even more like the moon. It truly is a lunar nation, which means what? That India's fortunes tend to what? Fluctuate, go up and down, up and down, up and down, like the tides going in and out. So it's a tidal nation, a watery nation. If we think, this makes so much sense, if we think of the monsoon in India, yeah, water, huge amounts of water, emotions, huge mass gatherings, yeah, for religious festivals and stuff like that, because the moon rules the masses and gatherings. What we also see here as well is the sun. Yeah, so the king of the chart. The moon is the queen of the chart, the divine feminine, the mother. The sun is the divine masculine. Yeah, so here we are. There's the sun. Also in the 1st house. So that also gives a great sense of pride in terms of nation. Yeah, and India is a very proud nation. Yeah, it managed to get its independence from Britain peacefully, yeah, under Gandhi, yeah, so that's something very much to be proud of. And it means as well that since India's inception in 1947, it's been about self-realization, yeah, because that's where the kingdom is, in the main house. It's in the 1st house, so it means the kingdom is in the self. So this is about India's self-realization, but sometimes the shadow of that can be exceptionalism. Yeah, feeling that one doesn't necessarily have to follow the rules when it comes to certain things. And this will make more sense as we go along. In there, though, this is where we start to get into some tricky problems, yeah? Because out of these 6 planets, so the sun can be considered to do pretty well in Cancer. The moon actually in its own sign is not always so good, yeah? Because it can make the moon overly sensitive and overly emotional, yeah? Because remember as well, if we think of tarot, moon is the what? The card of secrets, or something going on underneath the surface, yeah? So it's not clear to see by moonlight, yeah? So when we look here, if we've got moon in the 1st house, yeah, in its own sign, then there can be aspects of the psyche, of the collective, that may not necessarily see things accurately or see things coming, yeah? which, you know, which we can argue if we look at certain things that have happened, you know, that would make sense. But when we look here as well, we see Mercury is here. Now, Mercury is the planet of intelligence, yeah? If the moon is like the clock face, then Mercury is the mechanism of the mind. But Mercury likes to be in air signs and earth signs where he can think rationally and get a lot done. The Mercury considers the moon an enemy. Yeah? Why? Even though the moon is technically his mother, according to folklore. Because if we think emotions, too much emotion, try and make a clear, rational decision when you're emotional. When you're either angry or sad, depressed, or elated, or upset in some way. Can you make a clear decision? No, we all know when it comes to big decisions in life, you need to take your time and not do anything rash. Yeah, you need to stay calm. But here, Mercury is in his enemy sign, yeah? And he's with the moon. What that does is it speeds up the moon, which is not always a bad thing, except when Mercury is here too, it means that there is a vulnerability to get whipped up by emotions. Emotions can cloud the collective judgment. Yeah? Cloud the collective judgment. I mean, if you see at the moment, there's these huge rallies that are still going on when it's very clear that, you know, a lockdown needs to happen, like ASAP. Yeah? And I can understand why India doesn't want to do that for economic reasons, but you can't, you know, at the moment, I think they said the infection rate is around about 350,000 a day or a week, something like that. But it's up there. Those are stratospheric numbers. And even in a nation of 1.4 billion, you keep going at that rate, that is millions, multiple millions of people getting the COVID variations and stuff like that. So this is not good. So there's that. So there can be issues in the collective of India as a nation of organizing things, yeah, in a coherent and concise way. Now, look, this is not about individual people of India. I'm looking at the energy, yeah, at play, at work in the nation. And we see here Mercury with the moon, yeah? If it were in Gemini or Virgo, it would be different, yeah? It would be, you know, India would be absolutely full of tons of technology and stuff like that, which is, you know, every nation has technology, but I mean, it would be the standard, yeah? It'd be extremely techie, yeah? It'd be an extremely techie place. But here it's in a watery place. It's in the sign of the moon, which also has a lot to do with traditions, yeah? Traditions, what we did, what my mother did, what my father did, yeah? What my family does. And as we know in India, family is extremely important. So here, Mercury struggles to do its best job because it's in a very highly emotional place, and it's with the moon. Added to that as well, we see here, we've got Venus here. Now, Venus-Moon combination is a foodie combination, yeah? Venus, Moon, and Jupiter, they all love food, yeah? So when you've got the moon in its own sign, foodie sign, and then when you've got Venus here as well, oh my goodness, yeah? That is one of the biggest foodie combos that you can get. And of course, what is India famed for? It's famed for its food. It's delicious, exquisite food, yeah? All of us, think about it, all of us have tried Indian food at some point. And if you haven't, if you've not tried a curry or anything like it, then you've not lived. I'm sorry, but it's true, yeah? And think about Indian food. Think of its richness, yeah? Remember the moon is associated with milk, mother's milk, yeah? Cheese. What is a dairy? What's the main cooking ingredient in India? It's just come to me. Ghee, which is what? Clarified butter. Dairy. Yeah, that is the main thing. And then if you think of paneer, and then also as well, if you think of another one, what's another very popular cooking ingredient in India? Coconut milk. Yeah, that milk. Yeah, so the milk, the dairy is overflowing. If you think as well, what one of the most famous Indian drinks is what? A lassi, which is a yogurt drink combined normally with mango or some other kind of fruit. So you see there's that dairy element as well. And if you think of all the festivals and rituals that India undertakes, it's very lunar. Yeah, very, very lunar. But when Venus is here, when Venus is in now, Venus considers the moon as an enemy. And you think, well, she's a benefic and, the moon is a gentle planet. Why would, Venus consider the moon an enemy? Or why is Venus compromised in the sign of Cancer? Now, what we need to understand is that Venus is all about luxuries and the good life and stuff like that. But when Venus is in the sign of Cancer, again, that watery, emotional focus on the past element, that is the moon, because the moon is the past and the collective unconscious, with that element of food and also as well sugar, yeah, because the Sanskrit name for Venus is Shukra, which means sugar, yeah, sweet. It can also mean semen as well, quite literally, which is another type of liquid. Let's just put it that way. And so what can happen here? Venus can become very indulgent here. Yeah, very indulgent, because there's the sweep of the emotions, there's the food, but it's also as well, it can be almost a kind of excessive beauty in a way. If you think as well of those Bollywood movies and how sumptuous and how sensual India is as well. India is an exceptionally sensual country in the sense of, although there is a conservatism when it comes to relationships because of the influence of Saturn and traditions. So if we think, for example, arranged marriages, yeah, are still a big part of Indian culture. And as well as I think in Pakistan as well, which will also have the same birthday because they were separated at the same time. But this shows, yes, that shows that there's that conservative nature when it comes to marriage and relationships and status and stuff like that, because Saturn is the planet as well of status, hierarchy, structures, yeah, top down. So there's that. So there can be almost like a hedonistic streak. For India's conservatism, there is tremendous sensuality there as well. And again, if you think of the food, the clothes, the colors, yeah, the intensity, the vividness of color in India, yes, tremendously colorful places, even like the color festivals where people throw color bombs at each other and stuff like that. So we see here there's the ceremonies, there's the religion, there's the spirituality, there's the sensuality, there's all of that as well. But can be that feeling at times as well, well, maybe is it a little bit too much perhaps when it comes to practical things, yeah, Mercury, practicalities. Mercury is swept up in that sensuality as well. So that's not always the best thing. So you can see Venus here can become a little bit of a quite hedonistic, yeah. Then on top of that, we look here. India has got Pluto in the first house. Now everyone knows, all my clients know this, and I've explained. Anytime Pluto is in the first house, one will feel like one has lived several lifetimes within your life. Pluto is what? The planet of death, destruction, and rebirth. Yeah? Tumultuous, pivotal times, yeah, in life when it's in the first house. So if we think even the birth of India was it was quite a brutal one in a way, in the sense of there was no bloodshed in terms of India winning its independence because of Gandhi, However, once that partition was made, people had to choose if they were going to be in Pakistan, newly created Pakistan, which was Muslim essentially, or if they were going to stay in India, which is predominantly Hindu and had a lot of Muslim people at the time. So a lot of people went between the borders, and there was tons of stuff that went wrong. It was an absolute upheaval. And then when we look, and this is the real humdinger, looky here, Saturn, yeah, Shani, in the first house. Whenever Saturn is in the first house, Saturn brings what? Pressure, responsibilities, duties. So many Indian people feel tremendous responsibility and duty to what? Their families, yeah, because Cancer is a sign of family, yeah. And in a way, the positive manifestation of that is that precisely that. Family is very important. Family are very involved. There is that documentary, which is called, well, documentary slash sort of reality TV show, which is called Indian Matchmaker, yeah, where it follows this woman who's been making marriages happen. So there you see the involvement of the family in marriage, yeah, because if we look here, the Lord of the 7th and the 8th is in the first, showing that marriage is a family, Cancer, yeah, family issue, yeah, the whole family are involved. And one of the things that she said in this show is that marriage is not just a marriage between two individuals, as we tend to see it in the West, but two families, yeah. And I thought that is so true. So when I actually drew up this chart and then I saw these 6 planets in the sign of Cancer, I was like, it's the right chart. Yeah, so obviously there will be other people that use other charts, but I think this is the right one because it actually fits with the psychology of India. So, and what I showed you here, these are the transits. This is the transit of Saturn and the transit of Jupiter, as you've seen before in my earlier videos. So now the thing is, what does this mean? So Saturn brings tremendous responsibility when he's in the first house. So often I've seen with my clients, if they've got Saturn in the first house, they felt a lot of responsibility for a young age, and they often had to look after their family or their parents or something. They often felt burdened by responsibility. Yeah, so any of you who felt like that in your life, is worth checking out to see if you've got Saturn in the first house, because that will do it. Or if your life has been a tumultuous range of transformations, you could have Pluto in the first house. But here we see Saturn is in an enemy sign. Yeah, Saturn is in an enemy sign. Saturn and Moon are not friends. And Saturn is also not friends with the Sun. So here we've got Sun, Saturn, and the Moon all in the same house. Oh, awkward. Yeah. So what's happening is these three, they're starving each other. Yeah, the Moon is starving Saturn, the Sun is starving Saturn, and Saturn is starving the Sun and the Moon, right? That's not a very, it's not the best combination. And if you think as well, if you were to take it literally, there are lots of issues with what? Hunger in India. Yeah, people not having enough to eat. The last lockdown, people were literally running out, didn't have enough food. There's also, as well, a petition going on with India's farmers. Yeah, the farmers there, because they're like, well, we need, COVID protection and all sorts of other stuff. So there is this issue, this problem, this ongoing problem with starvation. Yeah. Now, obviously, 1.4 billion people is a lot to feed, but I'm just showing energy. Yeah, energy. And so the Sun is the kingdom and the Moon is the mother and the mind, which deals with nourishment. And they're both being starved by Saturn. And Saturn's starving them. Yeah. And it's all happening in the first house, the body. So there's issues there with nourishment in of itself. There's the incredible food. But are all Indian citizens getting enough to eat? As we know, Probably not. So again, looking at this energy here, and particularly with Pluto slap bang in the middle of that all, which is what? Dark night of the soul. So by transit here, we see Saturn, which is the lord of the 7th and the 8th house, is natally in the 1st, but is aspecting it by transit, aspecting the 1st house. This is tremendous pressure. Tremendous pressure. Saturn is the planet of pressure. So we've got Saturn aspecting Saturn, and to make it even more extraordinary, remember Saturn is balloon popper, natal Saturn in India's chart is at 20 degrees 29 minutes. Transiting Saturn at the moment, let me just double check, yep, is at 19 degrees 6 minutes, which means that Saturn is exactly aspecting itself right now. Oh my goodness. You know, that is, you know, when you think of it, that is wow. Oh my goodness. What you do have, so when we try and look here, where are the blessings? So I think one of the main reasons why India is actually really starting to face some heavy stick now, because remember as well what Saturn, yeah, he's got his stick. And they said, this is very interesting, they said this, the problem really started to get out of control around April, yeah, when I was looking at the news. Now remember, Jupiter has made a very recent transition into sidereal Aquarius, yeah, remember that. So if we think on the 21st of December 2020, you know, Jupiter and Saturn came together in a powerful point of manifestation, yeah? But at that time, according to this chart, Jupiter would have also been looking at the 1st house of India, yeah? Giving it what? Protection, yeah? Because here, Jupiter in the natal chart is in the homeland, yeah? Is in the homeland, the 4th house. So quite literally, Jupiter, while it was in the 7th house, was actually casting a protective look at India's 1st house, protecting it and the body. But what happened recently? Jupiter on the 5th or thereabouts of April moved in to sidereal Aquarius. So the aspect has moved off the 1st house of India, and now one of the aspects is on the 12th house and the 4th house of homeland, yeah? And what does the 12th house deal with? So this is what Jupiter is expanding. 12th house deals with escape and endings, rest, deep research, loss, foreign lands, secrets, holidays overseas, confusion, spiritual retreats. Remember that, confusion, hospitals, prisons, spiritual retreats, foreign income, secret affairs, bed pleasures, expenses, endings, hidden enemies, and surrender, addictions, charity, and the feet. Yeah? So we can see there's a lot of what? Endings happening in India right now. Yeah? Jupiter's looking there and expanding the losses. Because he's no longer looking at the 1st house to protect India's 1st house. But there is more. When we look here, here's Mars, yeah, and I've got transiting Mars here. Mars, the Yoga Karaka for all Cancer ascendants. But Mars is in the natal chart. It's at 7 degrees 34 minutes, which puts it into the nakshatra of Ardra. Now remember, Ardra is the storms, yeah, the teardrop. Ardra is one of the most challenging and difficult nakshatras there is. It has amazing sides, but my goodness, it does certainly come through and cause a lot of tears in life. The other nakshatra, which is almost as fierce, is Mula, yeah, which is, and the deity of that is Nritti, which is like Kali. Yeah, and it means tearing up by the roots. But Ardra means the storms of life, that the upheavals in life that cause tears. And Mars, the planet of war, action, drama, and various different things is in there in its natal chart. So that is very tricky because it means Mars is in the enemy sign. Yeah, Mars is in the sign of Mercury, which it's in the sign of Mercury, which is an enemy. It's in the sign of Gemini, which is an enemy sign for Mars because it's ruled by his enemy Mercury, who also rules Virgo. Yeah. So here, and what makes this even more profound is that India is having a Mars return. Yeah, Mars has come back onto original Mars and is also currently in Ardra. Tears, yeah, tragedy, disaster, yeah. So we see quite literally, do you see how all of these influences are piling up? You know, this is why this is so significant for India right now, because they no longer enjoy the protection of Jupiter. Now, when does Jupiter go back into sidereal Capricorn? Let's have a look. Let's see. It returns to Capricorn on the 14th of September, 2021. That could be the time when India starts to get some kind of relief, yeah, some kind of relief, because Jupiter will start aspecting the first house again, yeah. But it then goes back to Aquarius on the 21st of November 2021. So there could maybe be a brief respite where maybe some of these patent kind of things are lifted and India's able to start vaccinating its population en masse. But then it goes back into Aquarius, like I said, on the 21st of November 2021. So that could mean another wave, yeah? It could come back. It could be a third wave by then. We would have to see, because India can do well as long as it's got the blessing of Jupiter on its first house. But we see once that actually moves off, that's really troublesome. Also as well, we need to understand, as Mars keeps progressing, it's going to go into the first house of India's chart and possibly even cause even more havoc there, because Mars is considered debilitated in the sign of Cancer. Yeah, even though it belongs to his friend the Moon, Mars is considered debilitated there. So there could be it could get highly emotional, highly emotional. If we look, you know what, I'll save the transits maybe for the last videos, but let me just do animated transits, and let's just see when Mars is actually, let's go by month and see when Mars is actually in. Yeah, so it basically in June, Mars moves into India's first house. Now this could be where things really hit a frenzy. Yeah, things could be really going cra at this point, because technically that Mars is debilitated and it's the Yoga Karaka. However, this could also be a time when India is like, we really just need to completely sort this problem. And I'm not entirely sure when the Indian elections are. I'll put it up in the little thingamajigs. It doesn't come to my mind now, so we'll see if that coordinates with the Indian elections, yeah? Because there's a lot of campaigning going on. And of course, we'll look into that as well when it comes to Modi's chart. So we see there's even more stuff going on. But to add on to that as well, now this might look a little bit like a hot mess, but if we actually look here, ignore these planets here. If you just look here, all the planets are on one side of the moon, and we all know what that is. It means Kala Sarpa Yoga. So India was born under Kala Sarpa Yoga, and one of the effects of Kala Sarpa Yoga, and it basically means when all the planets are on one side of the moon, it means extreme fate. Yeah, fate and destiny become extreme, and it can deal with great falls but also great rises in life. So this is definitely a time where India could potentially be experiencing a spectacular fall. Yeah, spectacular. one that will just go down in the nation's history, but the recovery could be just as remarkable as well. But we'll have to see how far this goes, because I think the stone is going to have to drop a long ways when we also consider, on top of that, that India is also having a nodal return, because at the moment, sidereally, the nodes of the moon are in Rahu is in sidereal Taurus, and Ketu is in sidereal Scorpio. So it's Rahu is in hopes and desires, the house of hopes and desires. Ketu is also in the house of conspiracies, spirituality and healing. Yeah, it's the fifth house, but look, it's the sign of Scorpio, which can deal a lot with what? Conspiracy theories. Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation going around about the vaccines. So there's that. Here with Saturn in the seventh house by transit, seventh house is also open enemies. Yeah, so this is really tricky for India, where it's realizing, oh, maybe its enemies are what? The outside world. Yeah, because it's being cut off from the outside world. You've also got Jupiter here transiting through the eighth house of sex, death and rock and roll. Yeah, so literally Jupiter is in the eighth, looking at the 12th. Yeah, remember the eighth house is very, very difficult house, and looking at the fourth house as well by homeland. Yeah, so here we've got what? Double drishti, and here we see Chiron, a wound in the homeland that needs to be healed. If we look at the the eighth house, what does it deal with? We all know there's sex, death and rock and roll. Also deals with the genitals and traumas. There's also been huge issues in India when it's come to what? Sexual assaults and women's rights. Yeah, this might even exacerbate things. So if we look here as well, so it deals with transformation, wills, surrender, life insurance, psychology, addictions, disgrace, metaphysics, bankruptcy, inheritance, taxes, shamans, money from others, astrology, life force, and corruption. Yeah, part of one of the big problems as well for India is corruption. Yeah, corruption. And we can see with all these difficult energies being activated, quite literally what? People are being burnt, in the streets. Also as well, if I put in Neptune here, Neptune is at 28 degrees 55 minutes. Let me just pause here. Okay, back again. So as we see here, it's really interesting, because what people are describing what's happening in India is what? A perfect storm. I know that's a cliche, but it really does look like that. So so let's see here, transiting. Yeah, so I've put here, yeah, Kala Sarpa Yoga reactivated by the nodes, and Ardra Mars return, and then first house aspected by transiting Saturn, Mars aspected by transiting Jupiter. Yeah, I forgot to mention that as well, because Jupiter is here enhancing the effect of Mars. Yeah, and Mars is in a very difficult and challenging nakshatra, so Mars's power is being amplified, and Mars is also the yoga karaka as well, which means it has the biggest power to create influence and change in that person's chart. So here, Mars is not really helping. And it also naturally aspects as well the seventh house, which again deals with what? Relationships. So there's this India is now finding itself in this antagonized situation when it comes to its relationships with the outside world. If we also hear as well, when we look here at the Navamsha chart, so Saturn, balloon popper, planet of karma, is also transiting the fourth house of India's chart. In the Navamsha, fourth house is what? Homeland. So they're having a Saturn returns, yeah? They're having a Saturn returns in their Navamsha. So again, pardon me, that is pressure on pressure. And there, if we look, there's Pluto, yeah, which is death and transformation and rebirth. And there it is with Venus, yeah, which deals with, women, and it also deals with luxuries, the good life. Yeah, so this is all being what? Crushed, squashed by Saturn. And it's all happening in the homeland. Yeah, very challenging. If we also look here as well, in the 8th house of the Navamsha, there is Jupiter with Neptune, and in the sign of Taurus. Now this is very tricky because Jupiter is not at its best in the sign of Taurus. Yeah, because and I put here, it can create greed and delusions dominate in politics and authority figures. Yeah, there's an issue here with corruption. Yeah, maybe this is why not enough people are being fed, because, or they're, now look, don't get me wrong, India has made tremendous progress. Let's not forget this. India has made tremendous progress. From the early days, very few people in the population were literate, and now I think it's around about 74%, and that's not too bad considering that is 1.4 billion. Yeah, there's literary problems even in rich countries, you know, so, you know, like America even. So I don't want to be all, you know, downer on this, but I'm just explaining the energies, why India is having such a rough time at the moment. So there is this issue here with corruption. Now Jupiter is gurus, yeah, people of influence, also deals with politics, politicians as well, and it's in the 8th house. But not only that, it's with Neptune, and we all know the lower vibrations deal with deception. So when you've got a compromised Jupiter in Taurus in the 8th house, which is other people's monies, corruption and secrets, with Neptune and with transiting Rahu going through, because remember, transiting Rahu is going through sidereal Taurus right now, issues with the government. Yeah, all these rallies should be called off. It's in the middle of pandemic. These rallies should be called off, but they're not being called off. Why? Because there's what? Government elections. Yeah. It's borderline criminal. It's basically criminal. I mean, who knows what the fallout will be? Narendra Modi is very sort of like blessed and protected by certain planetary configurations. You know, he may still well win, but this will come out of the woodwork. Also as well, Saturn here from the 4th house of the Navamsha is looking at the 10th house. What does that mean? India's global reputation and standing takes a beating. Yeah, remember as well, Saturn is a tough planet for Cancerians. Yeah, he can eventually be good, but it's not easy. And also as well, when we look here, Ketu is in, so snip is in the 11th house, yeah, of friends and associates. So leadership, because it's in the sign of Leo, leadership friends are in short supply. Yeah, India's finding its friends what? Hard to come by, because in its 10th house, its public standing in the world, snip is there, snipping away India's reputation at the moment. Yeah. Because of course the numbers are so bad. Yeah. And then if we look here too, Saturn is also aspecting the 1st house in the Navamsha chart, which is in Libra, but here you have Uranus in the 1st house. So I put here the nation's identity is shaken to the foundations by shocks and surprises. Yeah. Remember, Modi declared a few months ago that COVID? We got on the top of it. And then what? Kaboom! Yeah, Uranus is what? Sudden shocks and surprises that are very unpleasant at the time, but can lead to liberation. So there's something here. There's something here that ultimately may help India in the end. Yeah? But also as well, what's most important here, Saturn is also looking at India's 6th house, which deals with what? Health. Yeah? And there it's got the sun. So this is the new kingdom, yeah? A new kingdom needs to be built in India. And Pisces is what? The sign of compassion. So I put here, India needs to build a kingdom of health for all of those in need. Remember, Pisces has got a lot to do with charity, yeah? So here, The kingdom can be built by helping those in need in India, yeah, but it's something that must come from within, yeah, because this is the chart of India. So this is where the new kingdom needs to be built, because clearly there are problems, because there's not enough oxygen, doctors, nurses, ventilators, yeah, because if we think Pisces is wonderfully spiritual, but it's not great on the details, yeah, not great on the details. So here a kingdom of compassion needs to be built, where, you know, the elites or those in power, yeah, because remember as well, the sun also represents politics, but leaders in particular, leaders need to have more compassion towards the everyday people of India and helping them, yeah, you know, with things, you know, food, charity, medicine, you know, healthcare, all of these kind of things, because this is the sixth house, yeah. What does the sixth house deal with? What does the sixth house deal with? Just to recap. So it deals with health and overcoming obstacles, yeah. So this is building a kingdom of overcoming obstacles. Can deal with divorce, but it also deals with pets and animals, can deal with lawsuits, it deals with the stomach, digestion, yeah, it's connected with food as well. Finding ways to feed the nation in an equitable, charitable way that benefits everyone. It also deals with debts, yeah, food and diet, accidents, thieves, enemies, challenging competition, deals with practical skills, repetitive tasks. Coaching as well also deals with meditation. You know, we know India is very good at that. Deals with enemies as well, challenging competition, police and military, coaching and therapy of all kinds. Yeah. So this is like a root and branch. A new kingdom has to be built in India, and it has to be in regards to health, public health. It needs major investments. So when there's pandemics in the future, it doesn't happen again to this extent. And what's happening here, like I said, because of the strength of Saturn is speeding up what? Time and karma. So Saturn is coming in and delivering his karma based on the political decisions made in the government, yeah, because they've been making some dodgy decisions. When we look at the Navamsha, look, there's a lot of illusions there, yeah. And Saturn is what? The planet, one of the planets of truth, yeah, but the harsh truth. And he's activating everything. And also as well, when we look here in the Mahadasha sequence, which means which car is the soul sitting in, yeah, at the moment, India is in the last stages of the Mahadasha sequence of the moon, yeah? So again, first house, the nation, the body of the nation is being affected. And there, who's driving? It's the sun, yeah? Moon, sun. And they went into that on the 26th of February, 2021. Yeah, so again, coming up, you know, they thought everything was all right, you know, in terms of the virus. Now things have changed because, of course, this is happening in the body of the nation. And then they're going to move into Mars on the 28th of August, 2021. I can't see this being any good. Yeah, I just can't. I mean, that from that point, it could be like the absolute peaks. Yeah, it could be hitting peaks. And I think Mars will, well, let's see where Mars will be. Mars... Let's skip forward by another month to see when he leaves. So if I go back here, so he's still, and if I do weekly, he stays in the first house of India's chart. And then let's do daily. He stays there until he moves out on the 20th of July. Yeah, on the 20th of July. So the summer months, or will that be winter, because India's southern hemisphere. So maybe going into autumn, yeah? Maybe when the temperatures come down a bit. But anyway, in the northern hemisphere, some of the summer months are going to be very challenging for India indeed. June, July, well, May, June, July are just really going to be tough. And that Mars Mahadasha sequence, all of it could actually be very challenging for India, yeah, because if we look here, because of the position, the natal position of Mars in Gemini, which is his enemy sign, and it's in Ardra, which means storms. We can see here the Mars Mahadasha starts on the 28th of August 2021 and continues all the way up until the 27th of August 2028. Yeah, so that's 7 years. You know, that's 7 years. I'm not saying the virus is going to go on for 7 years, but I mean, I'll look at where in my final video we'll look at the timings of things, but that could be a lot of, that's going to be make or break for India. These next few years are going to be make or break, because Mars is the Yoga Karaka, but he is in an enemy sign, and he sits in the 12th house of losses, endings. So there's going to be huge cycles of beginnings and endings potentially coming up for India in the future, which may lead to an ultimate liberation, yeah, an ultimate freedom, yeah, which could end up being good, and a kind of spiritual elevation in the sense of trying to do what is best for the nation, yeah, this new kingdom here. So really, this is what this is about. India needs to build a new kingdom, and Saturn is bringing the karma of that to shake things up. So I think I'll end it there, because that was quite a lot to cover. So again, if you'd like a consultation with me, then of course feel free to visit my website, thearchetypalblueprint.com. And I think the next video I will do, it will be about Modi. Yeah, and also in news, I'm also doing a collaboration as well with Ganga this Saturday. We're still looking at whose website it's going to be, but it's going to be, I'll just double check in with her, but it's going to be like 9 p.m. my time, UK time, and it's going to be sort of like early evening for you guys in the States, and depending on how far back you go. But I will try and confirm those details. So, but yeah, I hope you guys found that interesting. Bit of a deep dive, and I hope it makes sense. Oh, and finally, one thing as well. Saturn is looking at the government, and so is Ketu. Yep, the 9th house. So there's also pressure on the government to act and do the right thing. Right, I'm going to leave it there, otherwise I'll just talk forever on this subject. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all as well to the subscribers. Thanks for coming back to visit my channel, and I will leave it there. Okay, prayers to India, yeah, for everyone.